Hello and welcome back. In this lesson, we're not going to really be learning anything new. Well, take that back. It is something new. However, it's not only something applicable to Java itself. So we're going to go and talk about how to write our own methods. So if we go back over to here to our text file, and we worked on this a lot. But remember, our first lesson was about classes and methods, right? So we haven't really touched anything using classes because that starts getting into object-oriented programming, and that's kind of beyond our scope for now. So we'll touch on methods, right? And what we've been doing so far is just talk about the main method, and that's all what we've been using to run our code and do anything else with, right? But if you recall what a method actually is, a method is like you know your paragraph within your whole paper, right? And so you can usually write you can usually write a whole paper in one paragraph, but you usually don't want to do that because that's just it's just not going to be a good paper, or at least right off the bat, it's not going to be the best paper. So what we want to do is we want to start organizing our quote unquote paper into this kind of a structure, right? Where we have multiple paragraphs, and each paragraph is, in this case, a method, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all this code from beforehand, and I'm going to get rid of this import statement as well. So we have a nice clean, we have a main method over here. Now let's go ahead and let's write another method right here on the side. So usually what people do is they write their method, or however many methods, underneath the main method, but you don't always have to. Java won't yell at me if I write the method up here on top of the main method. However, uh, just do understand that the main method will always be the first method that runs, right? So if you write your method up here and you run the code and you're like, okay, why isn't this working? You expected the method that you wrote up here to work or run first. That's just not going to be the case. And so you just have to keep that in mind. And that's why I usually like to start writing the other methods after the main method, even though, again, it's not a requirement. So let's just write a basic method over here. It's not going to do anything fancy, just maybe a print statement or two. So we're going to go ahead and write, it's going to be kind of like the main method right here, right? So what we have is we have public. Again, you could make this a private method. However, right now we're not going to get into that. So we're just going to make it public. And you could leave off the static, but that would be with object-oriented programming, and we're not there yet. So we're going to go ahead and attach the static. And again, if you recall from one of my earlier videos, static basically means that, hey, we're going to be staying within this class. We're not going to be accessing, another Java file, or we're not going to be, accessing anything else. Everything that we create and want and need and all that jazz will be right here in this Java file. So public static. Now comes our return type, right? So here we have void because the main method never returns anything. The main method won't return a string, a boolean, or int, float, double, whatever. It's just not going to return anything. So we could keep this method right here a void, but you know what? For now, we'll keep it a void, right? Void, and then we can name this number or method. We'll just name it, math1, right? And then after this, right, we have to add our parentheses. Well, within these parentheses, actually, what we have are these things called parameters, okay? And I'm gonna talk about that a little bit more in depth in just a moment. But uh, to finish off writing this method, what we're gonna do is hit it with a set of curly braces, and there we have it. And the reason why math1 currently is gray is, as it says over here, it's never used. So what we can do is, um, we can write a method over here. How about this, right? How about we take it like this? Math1 is going to, you know, let's say it has a print statement, system.out.println, and it just prints out, hello, this worked. Okay, and that's all it's gonna have. I don't know why I named it math1. You know what? Just for the sake of the name, what we'll do is just gonna go ahead and copy, paste, and I'm just going to write. I don't know. I'm just gonna print out what 2 plus 3. So I'm just gonna print out what 2 plus 3 is equal to, and that's just to make sure that it's like a math thing. And I'm gonna try to run this right here, right? And if I run hello world, it's going to, well, let's see how the output is. And it will be building right now. And okay, here. So here we can see that we have literally no output. And you're like, okay, what the heck? Why is there no output? We obviously have a method over here that should print hello, this worked, and 5, right? Well, the issue is, look back here. Math1 is never used, right? So the way that you have to think of methods is, let's say, give myself some space here, but let's say you have, right, you have method 1, and then, down here we have method 2, and then why don't we add like a method 3 right here, right? Well, you see how these are just normal, regular, like things in floating in space, if you think about it, right? Well, we want to attach some kind of a link here, right? We can't just expect method 1 to start calling method 2 and method 2 to start calling method 3. There needs to be some kind of a link. And we can start adding some links by like, okay, all right, here I want to do like this, and I am horrible at this, so whatever. You basically get the gist. We want to have these methods linked right close to each other so that we know, like, okay, now it's time for this method to run. Now method 1 will call method 2, right? And then we want that same thing to happen to method 3 right here, and then that they're all linked, right? So how do we link it over here? Well, we know that the main method is the first method that runs, right? And we want to run math1 as well. So what we'll do is we'll just write the name of the method, math1, right? And then it's going to be in red, right? Saying, okay, I don't know what the heck this is. Is this a variable? Is this a method? Is this a class? And Java's basically saying, hey, let me know. Now, as soon as I add these parentheses, it's like, oh, okay, sweet. I know what math1 is. Math1 is right here. And I just need to end that off with a semicolon, and everything is good. Now, if I were to run this code, it's going to call this method. As you can see that it's green, it's going to be linked, and that in theory it should print out hello, this worked, and 5. Here we go. Hello, this worked, and 5. So now you know that that works, right? Well, what if you want to pass in some kind of a value, right? So let's say, normally I wouldn't hard code this, right? But let's say string name is equal to Jim, right? Let's say like, normally I'd have a scanner object and I'd tell them like, hey, what's your name, right? I'd ask them that. Well, let's say I want to pass that method on to you know this, like, that name onto this method, right? Well, if I put it in these parameters, it's basically saying, hey, the method down here is expecting no parameters, but you're passing in this string. Like, what the heck, right? And the way that we can solve this is we can come over here and we can write, okay, string name. So we're basically telling the method down here, like, okay, hey, expect a string value, which we need to specify. And this can be anything. You could name this name, or you could name this like, Billy, Bob, Joe, right? Like, it doesn't matter, because this is the name that I'm giving it and I'm using down here, right? And this is the name of the variable that's created over here. So these two need to match, and then this, and then, like, let's say instead of these print statements, right? What if I write like hello, and then plus see, Billy, Bob, Joe, right? So when you use the parameter that's passed in through a method, they both turn orange, right? And you understand this because, hey, Billy Bob Joe is what I received from here, right? And I'm using Billy Bob Joe down here, right? Now, if I'm gonna go ahead and run this and let's see what what is the outcome. So it's calling the method, it's passing in the name of Jim, but here instead of naming it Billy Bob Joe, instead of naming it name, I have it named Billy Bob Joe. See here, it prints hello Jim. Now, the issue is, or not the issue, but the thing is, if I were to name this name, it's going to say, hey, I don't know what the heck is going on here. I don't know what name is. So it doesn't matter what the variable name is that you're passing. It's just this and this, this and this have to match, and this have to match. And once those things do match, that's going to be perfectly fine, right? Now, here, we have a return type of void, right? Well, what if I do want to return something, right? So what if I have, for example, okay, let me think about it like this, right? Like I want to return a string, okay? Well, I'm going to have instead of printing something out, I'm just gonna have string response is equal to hello, and then it's just going to be plus hello, and then it's going to be Billy Bob Joe, right? And so there it is, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a return statement that literally says, hey, return response. Oh my god. Return response, there we go. And this is fine because it's saying, hey, like it's not going crazy, right? Now, instead of return response, which is a string, right? Let's say I have return 9. This is immediately, Java immediately starts yelling at me saying, dog, like, I was looking for a string and you gave me an int. This isn't going to work. So the workaround would be either change this to int or change that to string. And obviously we want to return a string value, so we'll keep it like that. Now, now let's run it and see what happens. If we were to run it, technically according to everything else, it should print something. However, if you look, it prints nothing. Now, let's go back and try to troubleshoot and find out why it printed nothing. Now, you can see if I hover over this, it's saying the return value of the method is never used, right? So if you look back here, instead of having another linkage back here, what M2 is doing is, M2 is like, okay, all right, what I'm going to do is I am going to hit it with a U-turn, and I'm going to go back. So I'm here to go back, and then it's basically pushing another value all the way back to M1, right? And here we're returning that pushed value, quote, end quote, to the main method, right? But we're not storing that into anything else, right? So what I need to do is string response, and again, you can name this whatever you want, is equal to math1 name, and then I go back and I want to print out, okay, I want to print out what the response is. So I'm just going to print out response, right? And there we go. Now, the reason why, or let me run this and then I'll explain why this works, right? Okay, now it says hello Jim, right? And obviously we didn't have a print statement here. The print statement is right here in the main method. Now let's talk about how this works, right? So everything in code goes line by line. So first we get through this line, then we get to this line, which basically says, okay, it initializes the string name, which is Jim, right? Then we get down to this line, and it's basically saying, okay, all right, what we need to do is we need to go down to the method that's called math1, pass in this argument called name, right? So let's go down there and do that. It's going to pass in name, and then what does math1 do? Okay, well, we have another string over here that says hello, and then, whatever the value we passed in, add that, concatenate it back with the string. Now return that string. Okay, Well, since we've returned, we're like done with this. We're done with this method. So hop back up here to the main method, right? Okay, store this response in this variable right here. The last line is print out this response, right? So the thing that it is it's kind of jumping back and forth. If you think about it, it calls this method, then it does all of this code, then it jumps back, right? If we had another method, right? Let me just copy this, and I'm just gonna like change the name. Let's see, okay, math. So let's call it math 2, and then I'm going to add another curly brace right there, right? Um, and I'm gonna make this a void so it doesn't yell at me. Okay. Why is this giving me an error? Oh, because I added another one of these. Whoops. Okay. Now, if I have this, right, and I call this method math too, well, that's just gonna be like, okay, it's not gonna do anything. So the void methods aren't really useful in this jumping back and forth sense because it's gonna come down to the void method and it's just gonna be like, okay, what the heck do I do now? So this is why, if you have a void method, you either want to call another method or it should be one of the methods that you have in the end. It can jump back and forth, but usually it's easier with this type of method. And then one last thing is there you cannot call the main method. So if I want to go send something to the main method, right, like before the return statement, because once it returns, it exits the method, right? But let's say I want to go back to the main method for some reason, I can't call like main, right? Like I can call the main method, but but I have to pass in this argument, right? And it's just like I don't know. Like this isn't a valid string array. That's basically what it's asking for. And I can try to call the main method. You know what? Heck. Let's try to call the main method right here. And just for the heck of it, let's call it. Oh well, we can't. Just because right here it says like, all right, we need to get this kind of an array. And even if I do set up an array right here, it's just not going to be the same thing because that's just going to set everything up into an infinite loop. So and we want to kind of stay away from those. So that's this video for now. I just wanted to touch base about how to write a method, and later on we can use this method writing for a little bit more like organization, right? Because if you remember like our rock paper scissors game, right, that kind of got messy. But if we were able to kind of like chunk it out in uh, different areas, right? Like we have the user method, the computer method, calculating method, right? This kind of got a little bit tedious, right? So if we had separate methods, we might have been able to, take care of that in a better way. But that's this lesson for now. Stay tuned for some more. Thank you for watching.